the most gorgeous girl of all.
Hello, nurse.
The Animaniacs are the totally insaney cockamamie creations of producer Tom Ruegger, spawning in the early 1990s as part of a collaborative partnership between Hollywood mega producer Steven Spielberg and Warner Brothers Animation. One of the most popular and most critically acclaimed cartoons of the 90s, Animaniacs broke ground with its cutting-edge style and far from innocent blend of children's entertainment and adult humour, featuring wacky slapstick comedy with racy characters and risque escapades. In 2020, after almost 30 years of existence, or 90 years depending how you look at it, they return in a brand new revival series. And to celebrate, I will explore the history, inception and development of the original series and its jettison into the 21st century. Watch out, we're about to get zany to the max in this edition of Cartoon Evolution Shorts. In the mid-1980s, Disney ramped up production on live-action animated hybrid film Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which then studio chief Jeffrey Katzenberg believed would save the studio's animation department, which had struggled to capture the magic and success of Walt Disney's features following his death in the mid-60s. Disney believed only one man could help them achieve such victory: Steven Spielberg. Following his recent success producing or directing such family blockbusters as E.T., Raiders of the Lost Ark, Back to the Future, Gremlins, The Goonies, and the animated An American Tail under his Amblin Entertainment, Spielberg was offered complete creative control of the project along with director Robert Zemeckis. Clearly the perfect man for the job, Roger Rabbit was an enormous hit, taking out #1 spot at the 1998 box office and helping Disney become the year's highest earning studio. The film won 3 competitive Oscars and 1 for special achievement and was widely praised, certainly doing its part to save Disney animation and softly ushering in their acclaimed Renaissance period, officially marked by The Little Mermaid the following year. Concurrently, Spielberg had been approached by the Warner Brothers Animation Studio to collaborate on a potential animated feature set to star junior versions of the studio's Looney Tunes characters, as the babification genre was all the rage at the time. Spielberg agreed to co-produce, but instead of utilising the classics, wanted to, in his words, be involved with the realisation of some new characters for the 90s and into the next century. The studio complied, with the stipulation that classic characters would appear. It was soon realised that the concept was larger than a single film, and the studio decided to, instead, produce it as a TV series, consisting of essentially brand new cartoon shorts. Senior producer Tom Ruegger acknowledged that Spielberg wanted to emulate the classics, and off the back of Roger Rabbit, had that clout to make short cartoons at a time when everybody was saying, don't even bother making them. Prior to Tiny Toons, Ruegger was working in a prominent role at Hanna-Barbera. He left the studio specifically to work with Spielberg at Warner's, who he sparked an instant connection with over their love of classic Looney Tunes cartoons. Tiny Toon Adventures was amongst a group of high-profile studio cartoons which made strides in bringing high-quality animation to TV, as low-budget limited animation series had become rampant since the late 1950s. Much like Disney had with Roger Rabbit, Warner's handed Spielberg complete creative control. An Entertainment Weekly article published to coincide with the show's premiere noted that he refused to compromise or cut corners, and micromanaged every step of the production process, approving every character, every script, every storyboard, every background design, and every voiceover. Ruegger said that Spielberg was very concerned about the look of the series. He was always stressing that he wanted it to look like a movie, not a TV show. Tiny Toons, premiering in 1990, was an immediate hit with audiences, raking in 7 Primetime Emmy Awards across its 100-episode, 5-year run, with Spielberg's first ever Emmy win presented to him on the set of 1991 cult classic Hook. As Tiny Toons was coming to an end, the production team were already thinking of their next series, and Spielberg called upon Ruegger once again. Wanting a billboard name, Spielberg first suggested spin-off series The New Plucky Duck Show. However, Ruegger wanted the chance to develop something totally original, a variety program called the Animaniacs, featuring numerous segments and various characters. For one set of characters, running with the duck theme, Ruegger drew inspiration from his first animated film, the premiere of Platypus Duck, made at college in 1976. Ruegger said, "I'd always liked these little duck characters that I had from way back when, so I handed those drawings out and everyone kinda took a pass at them." When presented with numerous characters, Spielberg picked out a handful, including the ducks. However, despite initially suggesting the Plucky Duck spin-off, he'd had second thoughts. With Daffy Duck, Plucky Duck, Donald Duck, the crew from DuckTales, Darkwing Duck, and Count Duckula, he realised ducks had been overdone, and asked Ruegger to workshop the characters into something else. The crew began by changing their colours around, settling on a black and white scheme after taking inspiration from the Tiny Toon episode Twotone Town, featuring two 1930s style cartoon animals named Foxy and Roxy. The team devised a backstory for the new characters, writing in the show's animation Bible that they were studio creations from the 1930s, designed, drawn and animated for maximum wackiness, but eventually were banished and hidden from the public for being too wacky, wild and uncontrollable. Using the Tiny Toon sketch as the basis and taking inspiration from a childhood dream Ruegger had about mutant Mickey Mouses, the team refined the character designs and developed a quartet which he called Wacky Generic Animal Creatures, with little antenna ears on them and red noses, a species referred to in the show Bible as Cartoonus characterus. Initially, the four were named Yacky, Smacky, Wacky, and Dot, though still after a billboard name, Ruegger had what he called a cartoon epiphany, upon noticing the Warner Brothers studio water tower one day and realizing they could be the Warner Brothers and could live in the water tower. The four characters were eventually refined and finalized as three. Yacky became Yakko, Smacky and Wacky were combined into Wacko, and Dot remained, though cosmetically her bow evolved into a flower. One of the final character design changes was actually made while animation was already underway, when Warner studio boss Bob Daly mistook a promotional Yakko balloon placed on the studio water tower for a Mickey Mouse effigy. Convinced that Disney were playing a prank on them, he called the rival studio and blasted them over their alleged stunt. When Ruegger explained that it was an Animaniacs character, Daly's furor turned to fear, worried that the public would confuse the Animaniacs for Mickey, or worse, they could draw a lawsuit from the Mouse House themselves. His solution? To add whiskers on the edge of Wacko and Yakko's faces in attempt to distinguish them more, making more work for animators who had to go back over artwork in various stages of completion and add the extra detail. To develop their personalities, Ruegger took much from his own children, and their, as he'd say, interactive personalities, routines, and little bits, especially anything that was particularly annoying. Elements were additionally brought in from classic screwball comedians and characters, described by show writer Peter Hastings as crazy people that enter a serious situation and wreak havoc. The show Bible described them as a modern-day mixture of the Marx Brothers, Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Lucille Ball, and Go-Go Dodo, with Hastings also citing Jerry Lewis as a major influence. To voice the characters, Tiny Toon alumni Rob Paulson and Tress MacNeille were chosen for Yakko and Dot, while relative unknown Jess Harnell landed the role of Wacko, after proving his prowess for wacky voices and impressions, particularly astonishing Ruegger, Spielberg, and casting director Andrea Romano with his ability to imitate all four Beatles perfectly. Harnell was asked to do each of the Fab Four as Wacko, and he recalled,
"But then they showed me this picture of him,
And I saw that he was like a little guy, so I just made his voice smaller, you know.
Ultimately, it was Harnell's Ringo Wacko that won him the part.
Peace and love, everybody.
Ruegger noted, it really worked well, not to mention it's a British British accent and the others aren't, so it just adds to the silly bizarreness of it all. The wild and wacky Warners were made the hosts of the Animaniacs variety show, which featured themed shorts, many of which were parodies of popular movies and TV shows featuring caricatured celebrities, something other shows of the time were too afraid to do. The shorts starred various recurring characters such as Pinky and the Brain, Slappy Squirrel, Dr. Otto Scratch and Sniff and Hello Nurse, Rita and Runt, Buttons and Mindy, The Goodfeathers, and many, many more. British sketch comedy series Monty Python's Flying Circus has been stated as an inspiration for the show's formula and its irreverent, subversive style. In fact, while Tiny Toons was aimed at kids with a touch of light adult humour, Animaniacs, in Ruegger's words, raised the stakes, aiming itself towards an older audience, with the writing team loading it to the brim with edgy humour, risque characters, innuendos, and mature overtones. Director Liz Holzman said, "We didn't dumb the show down so that the jokes were obvious and spelled out. We just let it all fly." Of course, most of the adult humour was quite implicit and thus still suitable and enjoyable for children. The final ingredient that made Animaniacs stand out was its music. Again, as with Tiny Toons, Spielberg insisted it have an authentic orchestral score, with music especially composed for each episode instead of relying on recycled music. Composer Richard Stone oversaw the scores, which were composed by a team of 6 others, and he conducted them on the Eastwood scoring stage at Warner Studios, the same used by Carl Stalling for the original Looney Tunes. Composer Steve Bernstein recalled, "It had that sound that room had at the time. All the wood was still the same, and the piano was still the same, and the acoustics were identical, and plus, we were writing in the same style that Carl Stalling wrote in." Of course, the series also made use of elaborate musical numbers written by the series screenwriters. When Animaniacs debuted in September of 1993, it was an instant smash, outrating competitors and nearly doubling the ratings of Disney's Darkwing Duck and Goof Troop in core demographics within months. The characters became so recognisable, they went on to star in their own video games and a 59-issue comic book series, which outlasted the TV show. The show ran for 5 years and 100 episodes, like Tiny Toons, and picked up a total of 8 Emmys, including 2 for Outstanding Children's Animated Program, 1 for Achievement in Animation, 1 for Original Song, and 4 for Music Direction and Composition. Towards the late 90s, Ruegger and his team began spitballing ideas for a potential theatrical movie. One featured the Warners working at the North Pole and driving Santa's elves crazy, and another saw the trio as troubadours sent on a mission by the king to save the kingdom. Additionally, there was a parody of Oliver Twist, an epic set during World War II, and one set during the Revolutionary War. One titled Hooray for Hollywood, which saw the Warners pitching a movie idea, was eventually developed into 2-part special Hooray for North Hollywood, and one titled The Road to Bohemia was eventually produced as Wacko's Wish, the Animaniacs' only feature-length film, which saw the trio on a quest to find a fallen wishing star. Originally intended to be released theatrically, it ultimately went straight to VHS, serving as the series finale following its cancellation in 1999. The Warners did make their way onto the big screen once, in 1994 short I'm Mad, which screened in cinemas ahead of Don Bluth's Thumbelina. I'm Mad was likewise repurposed into an episode of the show's 2nd season. Animaniacs also spawned a number of spin-off series, most notably 1995's Pinky and the Brain, which featured the 2 popular laboratory mice hell-bent on world domination in a collection of both new and recycled shorts. In 1998, after 4 seasons, the show was retooled as the short-lived Pinky, Elmira and the Brain, designed by the studio as a more traditional animated sitcom like The Simpsons, at the behest of series creators. Additionally, segments from all 3 shows were presented in 1999 series The Cat and Booty, Warner-Rooney, Pinky Brainy, Big Cartoony Show. Spielberg went on to produce Freakazoid with Warner Animation, which once featured a brief Animaniacs crossover. However, that series failed to match the success of its predecessors. For the last 20 years, the Warners have once again been banished to the water tower, but now it's finally time for them to burst back out, where they will return for 26 26 more episodes across 2 seasons between 2020 and 2021, exclusively on the Hulu streaming service. For the revival, Spielberg has returned as executive producer and is once again heavily involved in the approval of pitches, outlines, storyboards, and scripts, making sure to maintain the original voice cast and retain an orchestral score. Spielberg also insisted the series be produced with a writer's room and a showrunner, unlike most children's series, with Family Guy writer Wellesley Wild now taking the reins. Wild notes that the revival features the best DNA from the original, with the team plussing it by using the latest developments in animation technology to bring the property up to the 21st century. It's promised that it will maintain its anti-authoritarian voice and slapstick style, with Wild adding, "Smartasses are always funny. That counterculture voice always feels young and fresh." Visually, the show has seen a moderate overhaul, despite artists exploring various different redesigns in early production. After seeing many of these, Spielberg implemented strict guidelines to make the new series faithful to the original, simply taking original designs and making them more modern and angular. The revival will additionally feature backgrounds designed to look like paintings, to give a traditional cel animated feel. With Tiny Toon Adventures also having been confirmed for a revival series, it's great to see our favourite 90s Spielberg Toons back in action. And hopefully the Warners, in particular, have a long life ahead of them outside of the water tower. And at that, it's over to you. I want to know, what is your favourite Animaniacs episode or appearance? Fire away in the comments below and let me know your thoughts.
Good night, everybody.
Hey everyone, if you haven't yet, smash that big old subscribe button up on your screen to keep up to date with all my content, and hit that like button down below. Also, don't forget to check me out on social media, and please consider supporting me over on Patreon for as little as $1 a month for exclusive videos, early access content, and to get your name up on the screen. Thanks again for watching.